Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel here. It is me, with some really big news. It depends on how you look at it. President Trump just dropped a bombshell, of course. For weeks on this channel, we have made 2 videos pushing the message that Tina Peters needs to be freed. Tina Peters was the Mesa County clerk and recorder in Colorado in 2020. In 2021, she had a runoff election that was coming up, a spillover election from the 2020 election, and she saw that there was this national desire for election integrity, and she thought to herself that as clerk and recorder, she had a responsibility to preserve the files on election machines. And so she did everything in her power to create a backup of all the data, all the election files, so nothing could delete it. So if that data ever became relevant for court cases, it could be used. She became effectively a whistleblower. And of course, all the things that we found out about the 2020 election became very relevant. So her data became very relevant. We actually found out that the voting machines have access to the internet and all these things from the data she preserved. So she did a really wonderful thing for the country. But because we are in the state of Colorado and we have crooked officials, crooked prosecutors, crooked judges, they went after Tina Peters and said she was interfering with the election. So as opposed to doing her job as the election official, preserving data as required by federal law, she was prosecuted for election interference. It's funny because I made the video a few weeks ago and someone said, "George, you didn't even tell her the crime she committed." And I'm like, you're thinking of it wrong. You think there's a crime here. There is no crime. She's just a political prisoner. It's a witch hunt. They found whatever they could on her and put her in jail. That's how it works. So today, the president announced that he's pardoning Tina Peters. And the reason I might not look as optimistic is because it's a ceremonial, it's a symbolic kind of pardon. It's just pardoning her for the sake of pardoning her. But I think there's a legal question that gets asked by this pardon to the Colorado officials. And I think you guys are probably going to be interested in hearing what that question is, but here's what President Trump said moments ago. For years, Democrats ignored violent and vicious crime of all shapes, sizes, colors, and types. Violent criminals who should have been locked up were allowed to attack again. Democrats were also far too happy to let in the worst from the worst countries so they could rip off American taxpayers. Democrats only think there's one crime: not voting for them. Instead of protecting Americans and their tax dollars, Democrats chose instead to prosecute anyone they can find that wanted safe and secure elections. Democrats have been relentless in their targeting of Tina Peters, a patriot who simply wanted to make sure that our elections were fair and honest. Tina is sitting in a Colorado prison for the crime of demanding honest elections. Today, I am granting Tina a full pardon for her attempts to expose voter fraud in the rigged 2020 presidential election. So that's the president's announcement. That was the question I got a lot in the 2 videos I posted, I think last month and the month before, was why isn't Trump pardoning her? Well, it's because it's a state case. State prosecutors brought the case, not federal prosecutors. The president can only pardon someone who commits a federal crime or is convicted with a federal crime. It could be a preemptive pardon for someone who could be charged with a federal crime. So what this does is it means Tina Peters can't be charged by a future Democrat Justice Department. So that's good, but it doesn't do anything for the state case. which is why over the last few months, the Trump administration has been attempting ways to get Tina Peters freed. They filed a petition to the governor to release her from Colorado's system onto the federal system, saying, hey, she's a witness to a federal investigation. So they did all these maneuvers, and it always ended up just, well, they're still trying, so I can't say it ended up failing, but it's too complex because the state has the ultimate power over her imprisonment, her sentencing, her conviction, and everything else. So because of that, you're navigating Democrats who locked her up. You're asking the Democrats who did that to free her. You're asking Governor Jared Polis to issue a pardon or to, commutate her sentence and let her go. You're putting all your eggs in that Democrat basket, but the problem is the Democrats, they don't do that. They don't do that sort of thing. So the Justice Department at the federal level has been trying to release her, get her freed. They filed a petition of interest on her case. So Tina Peters herself has been trying different ways, different mechanisms. Her team filed a habeas corpus petition seeking her immediate release. And that recently got ruled on. I'll tell you that in a second. But the point of that was, hey, she's suffering in prison. She should not be here. Free her. And the court made that decision recently. So what does this Trump pardon do? Well, according to Tom Renz, he is a lawyer, he says this is a brilliant move. Oh, let me move myself. There we go. He says this is a brilliant move. The Democrats now face a no-win situation. They can accept the pardon and let Tina Peters out, or they can risk all the people Biden pardoned being brought up on state charges. From Hunter Biden to Fauci to the crooked January 6th committee crew, the Dems are now faced with putting all these crooks at greatly increased risk of state prosecution or honor Trump's pardon. So I guess this pardon is strategic. It's not just symbolic. It's also strategic. And I'd like to think the Trump DOJ sat down and said, okay, what can we do here? And I think they came up with this solution. And that's what Tom Renz is saying, that, hey, if the Democrats don't honor this pardon and release Tina Peters, then that means Fauci, Hunter Biden, and others are fair game for state prosecutors. We're hoping that the state prosecutions would come, because I don't really trust Republicans in statewide offices. They normally don't care. They don't care enough to prosecute anyone. But yeah, Dr. Fauci and Hunter Biden and Adam Schiff, these are people that got pardoned by the auto pen. So the question now is, if the states don't adhere to this presidential pardon of Tina Peters, is that an endorsement for Republican prosecutors to go after the Faucis and the Hunter Bidens of this world? And so it's a strategic maneuver by the Trump administration. It's really sad, right? You have the Colorado Attorney General going on the news as soon as the pardon dropped, saying this to Kyle Clark of 9 News.
Look ahead to the legal fight to come. Let's bring in Democratic Attorney General Phil Weiser, who we should note is also seeking his party's nomination for governor. AG Weiser, thank you for your time. First off, will this work? Will President Trump's pardon actually free Tina Peters?
No. This is a lawless act. It's an act of intimidation. It has no basis in American law. Our system of government gives states authority to run their own criminal justice systems. As you noted, there was a trial. There was a conviction by a jury. There's an appeal to the state courts. All that is happening under the rule of law. This president doesn't respect the rule of law, but he doesn't have authority to undermine how we operate our judicial system here in Colorado.
He's right. I don't care for him, but what he's saying is true, right? Presidents don't normally have the ability to pardon state convicts, you know? So it's a sad situation. But like Tom Wren said there, it puts Colorado in a very tight situation because the more pressure Trump places on the state officials, at some point they'll crack. So let's keep applying that pressure, keep bringing it, and just hope, justice is served at some point here. But what I thought was, interesting is, of course, we know the dynamics of how this pardon works federally, statewide. We know how that works. But it does put pressure on the legal system to answer, right? To give an answer. So I said that Tina Peters had gone to federal court to file that habeas corpus petition, but that was rejected by the federal magistrate judge, who ruled that she did not exhaust all remedies from the state. So usually before you seek relief from the federal courts, you have to prove and demonstrate that you have tried everything else and nothing is working. So because there's still an appellate process in the Colorado courts, she can't file a federal petition. So this is annoying. But we know that the state courts are going to rule like they've been ruling this entire time, which is to disregard whatever she's saying and also slow run everything. So they're going to slow walk, take years, months for her appeal to go through. She's going to file all kinds of petitions while running through attorney cost. That's the goal. And ultimately, it's going to be the same verdict from the state that this magistrate judge just gave. So it made sense to just go straight to the federal courts. But I think that's where her best chances lie, because she can go all the way up to the Supreme Court and have them review her case. And the hope is she gets a favorable look, because we don't really know how SCOTUS would look at a case like this if they're just going to be willing to go with whatever the state of Colorado decides. But it's a sad situation. The reason I say that is because you have a Gold Star mom whose son died for America, who lived an exceptional life and became an elected official, and all she did was her job, and this is the outcome. This is what she gets in return. It's despicable, and it feels like there's nothing we can do about it. The only thing I would say that I hope the Trump administration thoroughly pursues is applying deep amounts of political pressure on Colorado. Like, they should be treating Colorado like how we treat Venezuela or Russia, with sanctions of some sorts, federal monies being confiscated or postponed until the situation is remedied. They have to do something different. For example, Trump moved Space Command out of Colorado to Huntsville, Alabama. And I was like, okay, that's cool. But he should have used that as leverage. Should have been like, we're going to keep it here if you free Tina Peters. It doesn't have to be public leverage, like you're telling everybody that's what you're doing. But behind the scenes, you can make it very clear that the way Colorado keeps Space Command and the thousands of jobs and tax dollars that come with it is to free Tina Peters, make sure they have no political prisoners in jails. I also think because Tina Peters was arguably and justifiably following federal law by preserving those voting machine files, the federal government, Congress, should be passing some kind of law preventing her prosecution. I don't see that so far from this Congress. They should be passing a law saying if someone in an elected state position, pursues the compliance of a federal statute, that person is immune from state prosecution. Like, there needs to be like some maneuver, man, because it is really sad. If Trump spends 4 years in office and Tina Peters is still in jail as a 70-year-old old lady with health issues, there's been reports of cancer, but that's not true. But with actual health issues, if she's spending all this time in jail, it does look bad on the MAGA movement, because it'd be like everyone else won except Tina, right? Everyone else got their pardon, the J6ers did, and someone who was in a position of authority who went out of her way to blow the whistle is in jail. It's a message to all the other clerks around the country. If you see shenanigans, let them slide, because you don't want to go to jail like Tina. That's why her freedom is so important. It's not just about her, although it's mostly about her. It's about the bigger message that, hey, look, we have your back if you speak the truth. But if she remains in jail for whatever reason, then it's sad. I think there's a price to everything. Okay, there's a price. There's something Trump can tell Colorado officials that will make them turn their heads and think twice. There's something out there. There's something, just something. Hey, we'll postpone ice raids for a year. We'll make your cities more dangerous because that's what you love to do if you free Tina Peters. Like, I think there's something out there that exists. Or we'll do a prisoner swap. Here's a Democrat we locked up. We'll free him. Like, there has to be something, right? It's a frustrating thing to just observe. Man. Yeah, the governor of Colorado has no problem pardoning murderers. Yeah, murderers. Absolutely. What did she do to go to jail? Okay, I don't like that question. I know you just probably don't know, but are we not in 2025? Like, this has been a national case for a few years. I'm a little frustrated by that question, actually. I'll be honest. Because I feel like everyone should know why there's a political prisoner in jail. Because everyone on the left does. They celebrate daily that she's still in jail. They celebrate. It's like their big prize. But people on our side are still wondering, oh, what did she do? What happened? It's been years. There's Google. Please use Google. I can't sit here explaining how she preserved voting machine files following federal law, but then they went after her anyways. I feel like you should know that. I feel like you can Google that if you don't know. We have 50 million technology tools now. You can grok it. If you don't like Google's answer, you can say, hey, Grok, I don't know this. Tell me, or chat GPT it. But to ask me this question, every video I make about Tina Peters is actually like concerning to me, because I feel like everyone should be aware of this by now, especially on this channel, right? I don't want to be condescending at all, but there are certain things I just like. It's a disappointing thing that I have to explain to people why this innocent lady's in jail. And the line of questioning, like, what felonies did she commit, George? I don't know if that's a question to rage bait me, but it's enraging me, because it's like, it's assuming she did commit a felony. I don't like that frame of questioning. So I don't want to set a frame that at no point ever on this channel can you ask me, hey, what happened here? But things like this, to me, it's like, why did this J6er go to jail? That's kind of, what crime did they commit on J6? That's how that question sounds to me, because I have a completely different view of it. So if you don't know what's been happening with Tina Peters, I would implore you to look up the other videos we've done on the channel. But when I'm bringing an update, you can't just, hey, what happened? I just got here. And it's, while I'm pissed, I'm clearly pissed about this. Because, yeah, it's good news that Trump is pardoning her, but it's a symbolic pardon that puts some pressure on the state. But she's still in jail. It's been 11 months since Trump came into office in January of this year, and she's still in jail. Her situation is unchanged. Democrats are constantly celebrating her imprisonment. I go on their comments, and they're like insulting her. She's getting verbally assaulted in prison by her fellow inmates who are Democrats, of course, and by the warden and the security guards at the prison. Like they're antagonizing her. This is a pissy situation to see. It's annoying because it shouldn't happen in America. You would think this is something that happens in Venezuela only, or North Korea, where they don't even have political opponents, where they lock up political opponents. This is something I imagine in a country run by communists, but it's happening in Colorado, the heart of America. And I feel like there's something more that should be done by the federal government. Surely, right? Because I'm going to be honest, when I see Trump post about Tina Peters, I'm like, okay, he knows what's going on. But when I see him say to Israel, if you guys don't pardon Bibi Netanyahu to keep him out of jail, I'm not going to freeze aid or military aid. I'm like, okay, you want to keep Bibi out of jail, and you're threatening literal sanctions on Israel if they lock him up for whatever that bribery case is about. But Tina Peters, gets a message like, hey, free her. How about we sanction Colorado? Like, how about we threaten to increase ICE presence across cities in Colorado? How about we say we're going to send all federal resources. We're going to antagonize your liberal community. We're going to piss them off, and they're going to blame the state officials because you guys can't do anything. How about I use my federal office to go to that next level against the state of Colorado? That's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see like less Truth Social posts like, oh, you're in jail, sad, oh, free her. No more threats. Just do it. Do the thing you need to do, because it will force their hands. Because, the Democrats in this state will come out publicly and say, oh, she committed a crime. She's going to be in jail. They're going to publicly have that front. But if you interrogate them further, they are not willing to take it to the extreme. They will fold if you put enough pressure where if all the water is concentrated on one spot in the dam and it's not distributed, the force of the water will eventually cause deterioration, and that whole thing will come crashing down. Okay? There needs to be enough wind to cause this house of cards to start to tumble. We don't need any more. This is good. The pardon is good because it puts pressure on them. It's mostly symbolic, but it's also somewhat strategic, I believe. And I know they're trying, but it's like, we need to escalate. Because if a Democrat who, advocated for election integrity after Republicans committed shenanigans in an election, and the Democrat became president, man, you know what they would do? They would cancel oil leases going to the red state, right? If a red state locked up a Democrat, they would say, Texas, you no longer have your oil leases. The federal government controls this. We're going to do this. We're going to terminate that program. Food stamps, we're not going to send them to your state because your state is not in compliance with federal law. We're going to investigate your state constantly. We're going to have RFK at the HHS investigating your state. We're going to have Kristi Noem at DHS investigating your state. We're going to have Pam Bondi at the Attorney General's office investigating all your officials. We're going to have every arm of this Trump federal government investigating you until there's justice for Tina Peters. And you know, at some point, Colorado officials are going to realize it costs them more to keep her in jail than it is to just hold their ground. So they would fold. And that's what I'm asking for. I'm asking for a determination to say we're going to drop everything we're doing until Tina Peters is freed, because it leaves a bad message for everyone else in the country in a position of influence. If they ever see any shenanigans go on, if a top whistleblower like Tina Peters is suffering in Colorado state prison for 9 years because a state judge, a crooked judge, said he was deliberately going to give her a maximum or near maximum sentence to teach her a lesson. He literally said it. Didn't say it word for word like that, but he said, you need to be shown the consequences so no one else does this. He used her case he said, I'm going to use you as a political example of what not to do. That's where we're at. That's where we're at. So, oh my gosh. And you know, the Attorney General is running for governor. Jenna Ellis leaked passwords. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this. Why is the federal government not gone after, not Jenna Ellis, Jenna Griswold, our Secretary of State? Why has that not happened? Why isn't she in jail? Jenna Griswold, the Colorado Attorney General, had election machine passwords published publicly for everyone to see for dozens of counties. That's not a national security issue? Oh, it was an honest mistake. But Tina Peters follows federal law to preserve records, and she's in jail for 9 years of her senior age. How despicable is this? Why don't we lock up Jenna Griswold? Put her in jail. Oh, we need statutes of this, statute that. We can't be political. Yes, we can. They're political. Why can't we do political imprisonments? I'm shameless about this. Put people in jail. But no, we can't appear like we're too what? They don't care about the Constitution. Actually follow the law, enforce it fairly across the board, and stop telling us and just do it. So, see what happens. Keep Tina Peters in your prayers, because that lady needs it. You know, they threw her in solitary confinement. I think she's still in there because her inmates were verbally assaulting her. I say verbally assaulting because she's not an argumentative person. I spoke to Tina Peters. She's very quiet, very tame, relaxed. So, if they're shouting at her and her, security guards and the wardens and all the people in charge of the prison are making fun of her, saying she'll never come out, she'll never get out of here, I think that's a problem. All right. If you can go to tinapeters.us, if you feel led to, that's the website. Yeah, you can. That's going to have everything that you need to know. tinapeters.us. So, thank you all very much for watching. Lord, I pray you keep strengthening Tina Peters and give her resolve. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, goodbye.